Hey Gant, thanks for joining. Yeah, welcome to Town Hall number 2. This is the second time that we're doing this monthly Town Hall. Thank you everyone for joining. The idea here is to bring everyone up to speed of what's going on at Tagion. Today we are going to summarize what has happened at Tagion for the last month, where we're at the roadmap. Guys will be sharing the updates with us. And we'll also allocate some time for discussing questions from the community. Thank you to those who asked us questions throughout the week, and we also encourage everyone to participate in the chat if any questions do come up throughout the session. Also, right now I'm on stage, but just like me, anyone has the opportunity to request to speak. We also encourage this. So please don't be shy if you want to hop on. This town hall will last an hour. We'll try to keep it at an hour and run through everything. If we don't get to answer some of the questions that come up, we will take them next time. So with that, I would like to invite Thijs on stage just to get it going. Hey Thijs, and a small tip for anyone in the audience: if at any moment you feel like expanding the presentation or zooming into one of the speakers, just left click on the image and it should become bigger. So hey Thijs, how are you?
Hey Irina, yeah, I'm fine, thank you very much, and looking forward to this. I'm hoping we get some questions today. Yeah.
Yes, very exciting. I think a lot has happened over the last month, and there's been some really good progress. And I'm really looking forward to hearing the updates. So, yeah. Are you ready? Then the floor is yours.
I'm ready with this. You just control the stage, and when I should speak or shut up, for that matter, you are in charge. So I will just go ahead. Yeah. Thank you very much. So we did this overview. About a month ago and a week from actually now, where we did the overall status. This was how it looked like last time, where we had finished the first production grade component for database, and we had started on some other components, and we also had some potential delays. We didn't deliver so much of the deliveries up to summer, but this was how it looked like, and maybe we should jump to the next slide. That's actually how it looks like today. Yeah, so 5 weeks more or less have passed, and this is where we are today. I don't know if you saw it, but we have a new homepage now, the first version of tagion.org. It looks awesome, and it's going to be upgraded here over the next, I actually don't know how long, but it will be continuously upgraded with graphics, content in many versions here. It's never a finished project homepage, but it's going to be continuously updated now. And the first version is live. There was a big milestones, and maybe you also saw we got some very cool graphics, icons, and so forth. The team there did a lot of awesome work. It looks very good. Then we have also now fully the Tagion Pulse live, and the idea was like each week when we do a new software release, we actually also update the Pulse to show the latest status of the software and the network and where we are. And that is working. We can actually show it afterwards, but it's pulse.tagion.org, and what is actually also updated yesterday with the latest builds. And it runs at least an hour ago when I checked it the last time. So that's a big accomplishment for us. So we can always show the progress, basically. And that's also is connected to this Docker image where we created like an overall toolbox where we collect all of our tools and the network programs basically in the same like container, so it's easy to run and also to deploy to this Pulse. We also have other devnets and so forth runnings, but we use this tool for this. So we actually more or less delivered on all this. So that's very good and on time. We also did some small upgrades to the APIs and so forth, but that's it's not on here, but that's also happened. Because if you have noticed, we got a little bit new stuff here on the main timeline. We got something Dart sync services. It was first planned to be later, but due to we got actually quite some interest from external projects and partners, maybe also more than we planned with. Then we needed to actually already upgrade the APIs and also implement some more advanced database services so they can start developing utility on top of the system. So that's extremely positive, actually. So we did this, but that also meant like some weeks' work here needed to be front-loaded so we can support those use cases. And that basically made a small delay here in the what's called like production grade consensus component. That's the hash graph and the ordering functions and so forth, because it's the same resources doing the work. So when you do something one place, you basically steal the resources from another place. But it's still ongoing work. It's just been delayed for now. So that become yellow. We also added something new here. We finished like what we also wrote about in the updates, and new actor paradigm, a way to control the kernel concurrent workers, and communicate with each other. We also updated the interfaces, how we can basically communicate internally in the program, but also externally with the program, and a way to test this in the Docker. So all this work has actually been finished, and there is a little bit of scope extensions to this, where we want to upgrade our gossip library so we can be fully independent of the peer-to-peer libraries, which is also written in another language. So we had a little bit of extra work added here, but that's actually been completed on time. So that's also extremely positive, because that's what's being used now to create a full new program structure. We're creating a new main kernel program and a new what we call a shell program. I'll get back to this a little bit later, but that's also ongoing work now and has started as needed the components from up here.
Nice. For our listeners who are not so familiar with the terminology, what is a kernel or shell? Can you elaborate or define?
Yeah, actually, I will elaborate what a shell and a kernel is in 2 seconds on the next slide. But consensus component is your. Maybe I'll actually elaborate on the technical components in 2 seconds. I have an overview of this in another slide. But yeah, good idea, Irina. I'll do this. And then we also have some other things planned for after the summer vacations here. And we would like to host a community meetup also to start the discussions on governance again. We already had some iterations on governance, both on monetary governance and also on, you could say, overall governance of the whole system, the common, taken as a common. And we will like to start up the working groups there again and update the materials. It's actually already slowly started up, but actually have some meetups with the different parties who has participated in this already. We have also made the foundation for setting up the Tagion Foundation. So when we're ready to go live, we can click a button, more or less, with the lawyers, and then we have a independent structure with a foundation for continuing the work with the Tagion infrastructure and common good. So it will be segregated from our commercial entity. So we have fully aligned interests, so to speak. Or not aligned interests, we can basically segregate the interests, because it's not necessarily all the same with the commercials and the general purpose of Tagion. And then down here, we have the SDKs for iOS and Android. That's very important. It was actually potentially late on the last slide, but that actually has developed quite a lot. And we are pretty sure within a couple of weeks that will be ready again for external review, for audit, basically, on security audits, which we also did one time before. And then those components will also be production ready, which we need for making application for iOS and Android, for wallets or other application using the want to interface to the Tagion system. Yeah, and what we would like to have to happen here over the summer is we have this Docker, but the whole system in itself, the shell kernel, becomes fully production ready and stable. We had the latest Pulse actually running stable for 120 days now before we actually updated it. So we have a pretty stable system, but we still have some tests and operational tests which we need to do, and it's very well dependent on this delivery here and this delivery here. That's also colored yellow because it will probably be a bit delayed as it depends on these two work streams. And that also means our technology, which is on docs.tagion.org now, it's being documented, both the code and the concepts, and then we also have the tech paper, so others can go in and review it from a high-level conceptual point of view, drill down to the implementation and the concepts, and also if they want to actually read the code documentation and code. So that's also something we're preparing all the documentations, so we can also get external review. That's some of the big milestones which we're aiming for now and still on track with. Yeah. And then I know I will wait with the questions, right? But can you take the next slide, Irina? Maybe if there's yeah. So let's take this one here. So what is the kernel and what is the shell? If you go into pulse.tagion.org now and try to do a transaction, you will experience it takes maybe 40 to 120 seconds or something before the transaction and the wallet gets updated. But it's actually not the kernel's fault. It's because the way we implement it, like in one big chunk, so to speak, now with the same communication patterns, both on the service, on the shell side here, and in the kernel side. But that's a natural way of developing a project because we came from an R&D phase now out to a more quality and production phase. And the kernel can be seen, and in order to solve this problem and actually make it go much faster, and at the same time have a very efficient kernel system, we need to divide the two. And a kernel, you can say that's like the main, you could say, operating system. The kernel of what's called the core. What it does is like a highway. And there is only specified ways to go onto the highway and get off the highway. You cannot just go in and out of the highway or ask things randomly. It's only there is only one defined path, like contract execution. Then it creates consensus and store the data in the database. It's optimized in this way with it's a delegation active paradigm optimized for performance and reliability. And that's how the kernel is made, and that's the whole purpose of a kernel as well. So, and that also means it's pretty bad to answer requests from users who would like to know, is my contract through? Is my Tagions or other tokens, are they actually in the database? Did I receive them, and so forth? And in order to do all this in a user-friendly way, as you can expect as a user, we build it now this shell layer on top, which is in a technical term, it's a non-blocking, but that means you can ask requests. Many can ask requests all the time, randomly, basically, and then you will get responses without blocking the core, so to speak, the kernel. And this is a new architectural paradigm, which has two different, you could say, architectural paradigms on the kernel and shell, and they work together. And that's what we're implementing right now, a new main program and a new main architecture. So we get this performance both on the kernel and on the shell for the user experience. And about the components, what are they actually? So we have the Dart here in the middle. That's the storage, the data storage, the database. That's our distributed data storage. And then we have a hashgraph module, like the consensus module will also order the transactions. Then we have a gossip network layer here, which is responsible for communicating with other nodes and ensuring that the information spreads to other nodes in a random way. It's called the gossip way. It's from virus, how actually viruses spread its models after this. It's an efficient way to actually spread information in a system. And and this is how the core communicate. That's how the nodes communicate with each other. Then there is a contract interface. Basically, when you send your instructions through in the system, you send a contract which the system then executes through the whole pipeline, send it out to the other nodes, and then when it's executed and you have data in and outputs, it's stored in the Dart database here. So this is like the kernel main functions. And then we have the shell functions up here. I will not go into a lot of explanation here, but there is a transaction interface, so you can send transactions to the system, and that's a pretty important part. And then you have some, you can subscribe to different updates. For example, if the database has been updated or if your contract has been executed and so forth. So if you know when your transaction has gone through and the records are in the database and it's been updated, for example. So this is some of the main functions and how we have divided the two main architectural components up now to make them both efficient. That's actually, Irina, go ahead.
If I understand correctly, so the kernel creates reliability internally in the system, and the shell handles requests externally. So it creates not a one-way pipeline, but a reliable two-way mechanism. Would that be?
Yeah, the kernel is basically a one-way pipeline, right? Where you can get the contracts in here, and then you don't hear anything more. Basically, it comes into the highway and gets executed in the kernel system, basically, and then it's sent out to other nodes. The information, then the contracts get executed, and the in and outputs are stored in the Dart or deleted in the Dart. So that's what the kernel does. But in order to get those requests as a user and ask, has my contract going through? Is my data in the database? We have made some caching mechanisms and some public subscription mechanisms. So you can always ask and get the latest answer to the latest data without asking the kernel. So there is like a buffer or cache mechanism here in the middle, making it non-blocking, so we can actually answer requests all the time. Does it make sense, Irina? I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, I think that clarifies it a bit more. If Philip is in the audience or any of the devs that are working on this, would you want to jump on and give a few words on this development? I know I'm calling you out, but why not? Yes, nice one. Welcome on stage.
Can you see me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Hello. I just wanted to mention that this is like a really great architecture. It has been Yuri, who is a very good guy at communication. He's worked on satellite systems, so he's really good at this, and he's been making this architecture that you see up here. And we have also gone back in time, so we are going to be using ZMQ for all of this. And ZMQ is actually a really old protocol, but it's extremely reliable, and it's used in all kinds of systems. So the advantages of us also switching our protocol for communicating with people is that we will make a system that is much easier to integrate with and will also be easier for us to handle in the future. So yeah, that's just something I wanted to add. But I think it's a very good overview that we have here of the system.
Mm-hmm. And when you say integrate with, what could be an example of that?
So that, for example, be all kinds of services, because ZMQ is kind of like one interface that you can integrate to, and if you integrate to that, then you can do all kinds of different APIs. So we can do sockets, we can do REST API, we can do all kinds of different ways of communicating with our kernel in the end. And that means that it will be easier for everyone to integrate. So let's say we have a website or a web extension or a wallet or whatever it is, then there will be libraries that are fully supported that we can just plug in and use. For example, for the wallet.
That's cool. I think that's also maybe a nice segue into some of the questions. One of the questions.
Sorry, can I give one comment? As Philip said, we standardize the interfaces, right, with ZMQ, and we also use Hibern or HiRPC. And now we're going to enforce these standards through in the kernel and the shell in our interfaces, because it creates flexibility for everybody who wants to build on top. They know how to integrate and how it works and how it's going to work in the future, more or less, because it's standardized interface and data formats. And also at the same time, everybody who's working below in the shell kernel or creating APIs on top of the shell, they also know this. As long as they obey the main interface phases and data formats, they can work freely, as long as they, of course, keep working the interfaces. But that creates a lot of flexibility, both to build on top, but also to continue to develop the system without locking each other. Yeah.
So this creates a good ground for developing diverse use cases on top of.
Exactly, because now, as I also told you before, we have more than 3 first trial use cases which we've been working on with different requirements, basically, and then you quickly realize they all want different requirements, and we need to somehow standardize this if we should not all be involved on all developers or engineers on all layers from top to bottom. Each time we want to change a little thing, everybody needs to be in, and if we change something in the bottom, it affects the front. This is not you cannot work like this. It's going to be frustrating and very unproductive. So we need to make standardized interfaces so we can divide and conquer the work and also delegate responsibility. And that's something we learned the hard way. So we need to go in this direction pretty quick because of the push or the pull from basically use cases already.
Yes, and I think this is a pretty nice segue actually into one of the questions asked by the community regarding what happens actually when mainnet is live. The question is, can users do anything with it, or will it just be running in the background until services are added or developed on top? So I guess the question there is, what's the utility and what is possible?
Yeah, it's a good question. Maybe if you go back to the timeline, basically, one back. So what we have focused much on the latest COP, actually since February, is to get some of the first collaboration use cases on, and also start to explore and do business development on what can we actually use this infrastructure for, because you can see that now we build infrastructure, then we can build layer 1 system or protocols on top, and then we can build marketplaces. It's like 3 layers basically, and we are pretty far with the infrastructure now, and that's actually been a lot of work. And if we somehow can make that usable, this infrastructure, not only for the Tagion main monetary system and banking infrastructure, but also just in general, can we use this database combined with some consensus to make smart storage services, for example, or NFT services or whatever. So we have been exploring this, and I think the short answer is it looks promising. We actually we are exploring this, and we will very much like to explore it more for more reasons to learn fast from the actual you could say market or real user application demands, so we can start to get utility on the system. So basically use the system and pay in Tagions for the infrastructure. And also, so we don't get to do a big bang of the go live where everything needs to work at once. So we slowly build the components and actually release them as they actually work. So we start to build utility before you could say the mainnet is live. If with the mainnet we mean that the full Tagion, you could say monetary or main tokens are released for everyone, because that mainnet needs the infrastructure to work first, no matter what. And we can use the infrastructure for many things, and that's a positive thing. So we are focusing right now on building utility, and at the same time, we are actually finishing our technology and deploying it as to real products as we move toward a mainnet release in this sense. And that means we have utility on top of the system before we go live already. And I think that's extremely important to have utility and real usage of your system. It is, yeah. Otherwise, if there is no use of it, it's pretty. This is the first part of adoption you need to do right. This is extremely important. Yeah. Does it make sense? What it was, Irina? What was it more on the question? Actually, what was more on the question?
The question is, so what can users do anything with the mainnet when it goes live? Or will it just be running in the background until services are added or developed on top?
Okay, so of course, when we say mainnet, if we thereby mean you can the Tagion tokens are released, then of course you can transfer your tokens, right? So yes, you can do something with it. You can transfer tokens, and you can use your tokens to pay for utility services, whatever is available on the system. So they will already have a usage there. If the person mean what can I do with it, like on an exchange later, like sell my tokens and not use them for services, then I can tell on a business development side, we're also working on what will happen after this mainnet launch, of course, integrating with partners and market makers and so forth. But that's just work that just started. First, we need a main network to be live. And also, if someone followed the news on regulation and so forth for the last couple of months, I think it's very healthy to have a working product and mainnet with real tokens before you claim it and try to sell it in a market. You need to have utility value before you go into the market. Otherwise, you'll get some seriously regulatory issues, which we don't want to have. So we want to have actually a working product before we try to market it on an exchange. Like, for example, creating a representation of the Tagion token as an ERC20 token. That has been suggested many times, but what it is just a representation of something on another system. So it can only be a derivative, basically. It is a security, so to speak. And if you do like this, then you are for sure going to be regulated, and you will get trouble with authorities. And we don't want to do this. So that's why we kept off of these, you could say, funding strategies, basically. Mm-hmm.
Yes, this is interesting. Interesting topic that you touch on. This idea of a speculative token and a utility token. Maybe can you elaborate a little bit on why Tagion is a utility token?
I mean, if you can use a token for something which is not only speculation, basically, if you can actually use it for something like buying a storage service, paying for a transaction, buying goods and services in shops, if it has utility value in general, you can use it for something, then it gets internal utility, and that's internal value of the token. And that's what we're aiming for. That's what gives a system value. I mean, if you have external, you could say, pricing based on, you could say, more synthetic marketing and you could say price speculation from different actors, it will probably most likely be very volatile and not be, you could say, viable over time. So it's extremely important that we get usability and utility basically early on, and that's what we're aiming for now and trying to explore. Of course, we also need the other part to plug into other financial systems, an external system basically, and that's of course a given. I don't know if that was. What is this?
Yeah, it's an interesting discussion. So I think since you touched on this topic of pricing, I'd like to pose the next question that was sent to us from the community. It's regarding pricing, and specifically internal pricing. What is that used for, besides symbolic value? When we go to an ordinary market, the market determines the price. So what is the internal price used for besides watching it grow when certain internal goals are met? This is a question from Mats Fugl. Also, if you're in the audience, please feel free to participate in discussion. What do you think about this, Thijs?
So Mads is spot on, I guess. He's right. It's used for, it is, you could say, an internal agreed value, an internal agreed pricing, which we have said when we have reached some milestone and we also have decreased technical and financial risk, then it's fair enough the price goes up. So that's been internal pricing. And then, of course, also we looked at when we go live at some point, what can the utility value external pricing basically match somehow, but we don't know basically. So it's a guess, but we set it very low, so to speak. And so you cannot really use it for anything externally. That's the external pricing basically. So it is purely internal. That's true. So, but auto market demand, yeah, that's what market does, right? External markets, that's determine external pricing, but it is compared to other currencies. Then, so it is, yeah, of course, a relations to other relation to other currencies. If it's dollars or ether or bitcoins or euros or whatever, that's of course external pricing compared to other currency pairs.
I guess then a follow-up question would be, when do you expect Tagion to be priced according to
externally?
Yes, and not only internally.
Yeah. So you now my computer blacked out. Can you hear me?
Can hear you now. You dropped out for a second.
Yeah, my computer just went black. Okay. When the mainnet alive, you can transfer your tokens basically, right? And from there, it's so to speak out of our hands when it will be listed in exchanges and also in indexes, so to speak. Of course, it will not happen by itself to start with. So we are also working with actors there to help in those directions. But I cannot tell exactly when it will be. We have a roadmap where we want to build a DEX, so it can be traded there, the Tagions. That's in the roadmap. That's what we're going to build in the next couple of years. But like classical OTCs or classical central exchanges, it will probably happen sometime after mainnet. And we're also talking with actors in this space, but I cannot give any exact date on it. And there is also the question of how much do you want to pay to be listed on an external exchange? What is actually the price of this? Because if you get enough adoption and utility value of your token, there is a lot of circulation basically in the token, then there will come a natural demand for trading. And then exchange will adopt you organically. But to start with, they have a pretty high price growth to be integrated to central exchanges. Very high price growth. Yeah. Yeah?
Yeah.
I don't know if that was answer to the question. If there is follow-up on this one.
Anyone in the audience, does anyone have a question that they would like to ask or jump on stage to elaborate? Or just say hi? I think it's also interesting, this idea that you touched on in terms of regulation and the current landscape. What do you think are the challenges of the current situation for Tagion? Maybe someone in the audience would like to jump on stage and elaborate.
Yeah, I think there is. It's a very generic question, but in general, I think the regulation, and also if you look at the security test in the US, like what is a security and what is not a security. And the reason why I say US is because they basically regulate the global market. And if you market something online and a US citizen can buy it, you're regulated by the SEC, the main regulator, the Security and Exchange Commissions in the US. So you don't want to go into that test and be deemed as a security, because then you are fully regulated, and then you need to prove afterwards you have utility and another security anymore. So that's also why our whole strategy has been not to be deemed as a security. Don't sell to US investors. Don't expose us still to US investors, even though it's fully legal here in Europe and in Asia. but there is other rules in the US, and that's what you need to care a lot about. And that's also with that in mind, this is the whole strategy for this project from the outset. We don't want to do, for example, funding on an ERC20 contract on Ethereum. A lot of projects did this, but this is for sure a public offering, fully regulated. No matter which instrument or technical tool you use, it is what it is. So that's also why we didn't do this. And did a more private and under the radar approach until we had a live product, because you cannot really claim you have utility value before you can actually use the product. It's actually pretty logical, I hope. And if we then look at the industry in general, what has been made of claims and funding schemes for the last couple of years, like we are fully decentralized, it's working, and so to speak, without even having a simple dev or testnet working, or doing public fundraising and so forth, and not delivering on the promises, then I can actually understand it from a regulator point of view why they want to come in now and say, hey, if you are trading regulated services in the market or making fundraisers, yes, it's in another way, then it's of course regulated like it has always been. And now also they're hitting Binance in the US, and I mean, Binance knew, I think they knew, their compliance officer at least knew, that they were doing like exchanges in the US without a license, even though it was because it was for profit, it was for speculation primarily, right? So I mean, that's natural, and that also means the MiCA regulation, the EU and the regulation are being now tied up, so to speak. But still, if you create something genuine, it's actually governed as a common good, like in a decentralized manner, or as like a with a community, then it's still not regulated as such. So I think if you keep to the basic rules, I think we are in a good place still, and I hope it stays like this. And I actually also think it's a fair point of view from a regulator point of view that, I mean, we should actually provide better solutions than the current ones. If we create worse solutions, which is also regulated, then I mean, why shouldn't it be as regulated as the current banking services, basically? If it's just the same thing, just with a different technical flavor. Yeah, it's about the governance. It's not so much about the technicality, so to speak.
Yes, it will be interesting to see how the developments continue, and also how we will navigate this landscape, also in different countries. So maybe we can take that discussion a bit deeper next time, along with how Tagion is approaching governance in general. For now, I can see that there's another question in the chat. Can you describe how you're going to create the circulation of Tagions so the exchanges might find Tagion more interesting?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So if it is an exchange, central exchange or decentralized exchange, why would they adopt it anyways? Why would they put it on? It's because there is enough volume so they can earn money basically on the transactions, right? They earn on the transaction. So we need volume. And how do you get that? You need demand. So we need to build a lot of utility. That's number one. And that's what we're already trying to explore now, to get utility value. So there is a real value of the token, and that creates real demand. That's number one. We are working on this because that will be the natural organic demand, which will then be something that has demand and people want to trade. It basically is interesting from an exchange point of view because they go earn money on it. But how do we then, if we create utility, how do we make sure to circulate and get them out there to the exchanges or to the first OTC disk? Will OTC, over the counter trading disk, would be like a first step towards that? That's a very good question. And first of all, we need the mainnet to be live. Again, we don't want to be a security, but we are open for these strategies here and also exploring it right now. maybe we could partner up with some OTCs in the market, some of the bigger players doing OTCs to start with to help generate the first circulation. And that will also create the first, you could say, trading basically. And then when there is enough volume and it spreads out in the market, so to speak, slowly in this way, then probably at some point either a DEX or a central exchange will start adopting it when we get enough utility and enough demand. And in order to this to happen, we also need two actors, one to buy and sell, basically a pair, to be an exchange to work. It needs a certain volume. And there we also have trying to, and in order for this to work, you have two sides of the market. So you need somebody to make the market and somebody to take the market who actually, so they trade against each other, so to speak, in a pair, for example, Ether, Tagion. In order to get the makers, the one who ensures there is liquidity you can trade against, to go on a platform again on a central exchange and provide this and actually do this work, they also need enough. They would require enough organic actually utility and demand in order to do this. But when you get there, we are also talking with some market makers and integrators in this areas who integrate to exchanges and DEXs. They would be interesting in providing these services, so you can actually use the Tagion Ether trading per on an exchange. And again, we are also working actually on this. This is a bit more far out than an OTC desk, and this is also required utility and the first market adoption. But for sure, this is what we are working against, and we just started with this work as well. And we're also very actually open to inputs if somebody has relations or good ideas, but then come and chat here or somewhere else, then that would be great. And I don't know if I answered your question, Stefan. But you could say, if we also take it from a timeline point of view, we soon have the first products ready. We started with the first marketing and community building. We also have and we try to create Tagion as a community project now. And this is the process actually ongoing since February now. And that means we also will try to build the first utility now together with other projects, like with 3 projects and system. It could be whatever who wants to integrate with us. We're having discussions there. And then it could be utility cases already trying to build on top of our system. Everything which we can get for utility, and also like horizontal integration to the infrastructure. And then, of course, on top of this, we need to partner up with market makers, central exchanges, OTC desks, people who are exposed to the market, so they can help commercialize the Tagion tokens into the market. And but they will require we have some kind of product and utility before they would work with us. But that's like the step-by-step roadmap, which is actually happening right now.
Great.
But Stefan, you can also jump on stage and try to answer or elaborating questions. I don't know if I hit it. It's pretty hard to talk with yourself. Now I lost my computer.
No, I actually think you did a good job. Maybe to make sure that everybody understands over-the-counter, can you share the principles behind over-the-counter technique?
Yeah, so when you don't have enough volume yet to be in a big marketplace, because that require a decent amount of actors and volume to basically, otherwise it doesn't work. So then some central unit will facilitate an over-the-counter. And that means I as a person can go there and say, I would like to buy or sell some Tagions. And then another person can go there, I would like to buy and sell some Tagions. And then they basically have their own books where they match those buy and sell orders against each other. And they then own a spread basically on this, but they facilitate the first market transactions over the counter. So yeah, that's like you can buy and sell over the counter your Tagions to ethers or whatever. And those OTC shops, so to speak, they of course have a lot of other products in their shop, like a lot of different type of tokens, basically. So they are exposed in many different products often. So it's a generic over-the-counter disk.
Yes, and what is setting the price then? The buyer or the seller in this situation?
Yeah, and that will be a combination of both, right? They often, so like over the counter, like a local exchange shop or something will often have some kind of buy and sell quotes, which you can buy and sell to. And of course they then own on the spread, right? And then they know what you can buy and sell your Tagions or your ethers or whatever to, right? Yeah.
Cool, thank you.
Mm-hmm. They can actually also facilitate bigger transactions with bigger players, like directly. But that's, yeah, anyways. So yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah. What are you saying, Irina?
Thank you for clarifying that. I think it's really interesting to hear how Tagion is going to approach landing on the market and all the different ways that this is being drawn out right now. Maybe next time we could dive a little bit deeper into these.
So also like, yeah, we could dive into it. And the problem is right now, we have the first interactions and business development talks with different other chains and with market makers, OTC disks, but we're not allowed to use their names yet. We also have quite some projects probably coming onto the system and using infrastructure, but we don't have formal names we can use yet. As soon as we have something, we can of course announce it. But we are working with these, and we are working with serious players in the market. Yeah, because of course we need to go in this direction and get out to the market.
Yes, of course. And I hope that also for Mads and Draven too, the discussion today helped to answer the questions that you posed. Please remember that if you want to follow up in this discussion, feel free to take it in the general channel on the Discord after the town hall. We really encourage to keep the conversation going. With that, are there any more questions so far? Otherwise, we can wrap it up here. Give it a few moments for any more questions coming in. I can see Henrietta's typing. Nice. You're also welcome to jump on stage. Oh, just a comment that the homepage looks great.
And I think like it's actually funny to present something and also prepare for a presentation what we actually did since February to now, right? And I think you could say from a general point of view, the products are getting ready and we are starting to get the first traction in the market and preparing for this basically. And that's the plan for this year. And that's actually what we have more or less executed on time. So we'll just continue on that roadmap basically. I guess that's it's actually very, very positive development over the last half year in this direction.
Yes, and I guess we will post another town hall towards the end of the summer. So keep an eye out and stay tuned. Because we hope to share some more developments soon. And please remember that we encourage an ongoing conversation. So if you have any questions or any comments, just post them in the general chat.
And another thing, actually, if like the reason why we're also having these town halls is, of course, to do information, but also to encourage people who are maybe interested in hearing what we're doing and also maybe to join on some work streams or in the community. It could be in governance or in some of the technical aspects. So if you have some kind of interest in economics or banking or in low-level system development or whatever, then please reach out here on I think on Discord and or whatever. It could also be in I guess in communications, whatever in relation to this. Please reach out. We're always open for discussion here on Discord. Yeah.
Yes, very important part, Thijs. Thank you so much for sharing the updates and answering the questions. It was great to know where we're at today. Yeah. And hope everyone has also a good summer. And we'll be back in some time.
Yeah, we'll be back after the summer, and have a good summer, everyone, and thanks for hosting here.
Yes. Good summer, yes.
Cool.
I can see Gant is typing. I'm not sure if it's a question, so I'm gonna wait a few minutes. Nice. Yes, good summer to you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate all of you guys in the audience. And take good care.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye-bye.